Sudden death, all loss has its own complications, and how we grieve, how we unpack, and how we process loss, how the loss happens has its own complexities. And so sudden death, unpacking that is different from someone who has been sick and you have been watching them deteriorate. You kind of are preparing along the journey. That doesn't mean that even when the person dies after they have been sick for a while, you're ready for them to die. No, we are not ready for them to die. We're taking them to hospital. They're getting treatment because we are creatures of hope. We are hoping that they will get better. Yeah? But when someone dies suddenly, then you're suddenly thrust into everything new. Loss of a husband is and loss of a parent for your children is one of those very devastating losses, because it's loss of what we call a pillar relationship. A pillar relationship means it's a relationship that affects your identity. You now are no longer Mrs. So-and-so. You're now who? You're left there thinking, whose wife am I? Who do I belong to? You're no longer your father's daughter, and I'm no longer my husband's wife. Who do I belong to? And your children, this is their father. Who do we belong to anymore? And so pillar relationships impact identity. With loss of a spouse, there's also an income issue. Are we then being thrust into becoming destitute? Are we going to have to change our lifestyle? What's that going to look like? But then there's also loss of, when you lose your husband, you lose your present, and you also lose the past that you have with him, and you also lose a future that you had planned for. You had dreamed together, you had a future planned together. And the other losses that accompany this, because when you got married, it was partly because I want companionship. You are very clear, I don't want to spend life by myself. You started having a family together, so you're also clear that I have someone to parent with. And so the future of parenting with someone is also lost. For your children, losing a father the future looks bleak. And so all those losses have a bearing on how you grieve and how long the journey looks like, and how you're going to heal. Essentially, Quinta, loss and grief cause distortions. Distortions are essentially three. One, it distorts your view of yourself. Who do I belong to anymore? Because we belong to ourselves. We never remember that we belong to ourselves. We never remember that we belong to God. But we always think that we need to be attached to something to give us identity. So grief causes a distortion of self. Grief causes a distortion of the world around us. How do we view the world? People will be pitying me. People will think I'm a burden, So it causes, and really, when you're widowed, people just want to love on you, but you feel like I'm being a burden. But it also causes a distortion of your view of God. You can be like, where was God when my husband died? I prayed, I fasted. What happened? Why are we being left like this? I serve in church, So when these three get distorted, then everything is shifted.
Wow, well said, Rahab. Mweni. Rahab, Mweni has pointed out something about when you lose your spouse, you lose your husband, you lose your past, you lose your present, and you lose your future. What are some of those things that you had planned with your husband that really hit hard the moment you learned of his demise?
You think of all that process that you're going to be alone. And then just even talk of they will one day get married. Am I going to be giving away my daughters alone? Or, those small things, they look nothing, but they really bother you. And you say, God, how is it going to be? Because that's the reality. And then you find your life, as my sister has said, it's cut short because your dreams are shattered. Because as you started your journey, you have your goals, you have your dreams, and all of a sudden, they're actually all shattered. And I can say for me, it's only God who made a difference. Let me be very open. Thank God I was a born-again Christian, and I knew God. So just knowing that God is with me, that was the greatest encouragement. And say that my church actually coming over to encourage me, my spiritual leaders, and the women and all that, and hearing, and especially the Word of God really made me, because it's all in the Word of God. And especially, I like one of our pastor wife came and read Romans 8, that 1 to 39, which says, nothing should separate us from the love of God, not even death. You see, I had been reading that, but it didn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. What are you talking about? So when she read, I went back after people had left and read, actually it's written in the Bible that nothing should separate us from the love of God, not famine, not tribulation, not even death. So I said, even the death of my husband. And that made a turnaround.